some of that knowledge is baked into how you inform the process all along. However, there are specific Forest Lake specific deliverables that would be outcomes for those additional services, right? Am I correct in that assumption?
Correct, yeah. And for that particular additional services, service 1 of 2, the deliverables would be, essentially identification of the metrics that you all decide are important to you, and then evaluation of those metrics in some kind of graphic form that compares those communities to Forest Lake. And then the same thing for optional service 2, which is to do concepts, alternative concepts for redevelopment of sites that the city doesn't currently own. Because you identified in the RFP that the core services need to include evaluation of sites owned by the city, but there might be others that are catalyst redevelopment sites that we could explore too.
Understood, that's helpful. Other questions? Jerry, I think I saw your hand up, go ahead.
Bruce and Rita, first of all, thanks for the great proposal that you presented to us and the detail involved in it. There's so much detail in it, I actually got lost and confused sometimes in it.
Oh no, oh no.
So one thing I think that might be helpful to a lot of us is for you to provide us a list of the deliverables. You have throughout this whole document, there's lots of things you're providing, but it's hard to kind of put it all in one page unless you handwrite it yourself. So if you could provide a list of your deliverables, I think that would be great for everybody.
Absolutely.
And then secondly, as part of that, could you kind of give more of a recap of the meetings that you intend to have? I think there's several meetings with the downtown committee, community outreach, and then city council. And again, I kind of got lost with how many meetings are you planning to have as part of this project?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then the second question I have for you is, have you ever been involved in a downtown development like this, where a huge lake is a part of downtown along with a major park area that's also part of downtown?
Yes. So both, I would say, riverfronts and lakefronts, and both spaces that are already owned by the city, are already parkland, or spaces that are identified or envisioned to be parkland as part of a downtown plan. So I'll use really quickly one example, and that's Mound. I showed those 2 images of downtown Mound. There was when we began that process, there was no thought that we're actually going to create open space or parkland in the core of downtown Mound. And that grew out of the downtown plan. That was a vision that really was latched onto by the community as something they wanted to accomplish. And that meant acquiring properties, realigning roadways, building new infrastructure, and ultimately building the parkland. And so that's an example of something that grew out of the downtown plan. Another example of parkland that is core or central to the downtown, and Rita probably has examples of this too. Oh boy, downtown Excelsior, Commons Park there in downtown Excelsior was a core part of the downtown plan. A couple of parks, Veterans Park and one other one in downtown Red Wing, and then the Levy Park in downtown Hastings. Those are a couple of riverfront communities, but core examples of open space that are central to the downtown plan.
Great, thank you.
And Jerry, we will follow up with what you had asked for, but page 8 of our proposal, where they have the schedule, does list the meetings. I know it can be easier to see it in a list format, but that does include the meetings in a graphic format. And that's, again, we'll provide it, but that is another way of looking at it that may or may not be helpful.
Great, thank you.
That's helpful. Other questions? Patrick, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one quick question. Could you elaborate a little bit more on your step 8, how to make it happen with the implementation? Often these plans get put in place and they've got nice graphics and nice concepts, but they get a little short on how we get there. Tell me how you explain, or what kind of things you do to tell us how to get to where we want to go.
Yeah, happy to. So this is, Rita didn't mention, but I was with HKGI for 20 years. Then I left HKGI to become the chief of planning and design for the Minneapolis Park Board. I was there for about 4 years, and then I spent the next 5 years with my own practice, an advisory practice, essentially working in the category of implementation. Because what I saw is exactly what you described, where there are a lot of plans being created, and the expertise and the strategy behind implementing them was often either lacking or non-existent. So I spent 5 years working mostly on riverfront projects or lakefront projects, implementing really complicated community development efforts. So the kinds of things that I roll into implementation strategy are capital sources and uses strategies. So in ways I think about this almost like a developer thinks about a development. They create an operating pro forma, they create a capital sources and uses strategy, they understand what their phasing is, and all of those components become part of the toolkit that the community needs, especially city staff, needs in order to push this endeavor forward for however many years it's going to need to be on the front burner in order to be accomplished. So there are a host of financial tools. I'm happy to send some examples of those to you so that you have them too. But I can show you specifically. Unfortunately, they're all a bunch of spreadsheets and things like that. But they get at the kinds of things we roll into our implementation strategy.
Yep, I don't mind spreadsheets.
Okay, perfect. I'll add that to my list of what I'm going to send you.
Other questions? One question that came to my mind as I was listening to your proposal, you reference long-term relationships many times, and it's great to hear that you work with clients on an ongoing basis. The proposal, as I understand your timeline, is essentially a 1 year, February to December. How do you typically, what does the life cycle typically look like after that December phase, and what does future engagement typically look like for your clients?
Mm-hmm. So typically the downtown plan is a process, and it has a beginning and an end, and it results in a toolkit, an implementation strategy really for you to use in pushing forward the ideas that are generated in that plan. The life of a plan usually is 15 years or so. And it takes that long for momentum really to build a head of steam behind the plan. And that image that I showed with the windmills, I think when we created that, we really wanted to depict that there are little things that are going to happen over the first number of years. Those little things are going to trigger someone else to make an investment that essentially leverages their belief in you as a community to move something forward. They're going to be a pioneer investment, a pioneer development. And I think you already have a couple of those in the community. But what that ultimately does is create a critical mass of investment that others are going to want to glom onto. And it takes time to create that. I wish I could say that you're going to have this downtown plan accomplished in 5 years. But typically communities start seeing some progress after 5 years. And it takes a good decade, usually, often, I hope I'm not depressing you, takes a good decade to really build momentum behind what you are wanting to accomplish.
If I may add to that, I'm going to take a little different spin because I was thinking about your question in a different way, which is why it's always good to have multiple staff members.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of our long-term relationship with communities, the form it takes after we do, for example, an initial plan really does differ by community. So some communities like a Mound, we actually are the planners. We are consulting planners. We are on staff. We're there day to day and helping them. A community like Chaska that was mentioned, we come in on as needed basis. So the staff comes back to us, the city council comes back to us and says, we want to work on this element of the plan, you know, propose to us how you would do it and have the relationship. So it's really an in and out kind of a thing where we come in and we work strategically with you on certain elements and support the implementation of that. So how our relationship looks after we complete a plan really is hopefully done on a relationship basis. That's why we like to build them, is that we tailor what you need and bring the staff that you need to make these things happen. So we have a lot of examples in many communities where we've worked with them for a decade or more, and it might be that we meet with them, we prepare a plan, and then a year might go by before we do more with them because their staff can handle certain elements, and we're happy to do that. That's an ongoing part of our business. Our preferred is to establish those relationships and have a client that we know the community, we can come back and support whatever that looks like for you. So again, I don't know if that's also what you were asking, but I wanted to cover that part of it also.
That's helpful. Thank you. Other questions for Bruce and Rita this evening? I've got one more, if you'll allow. So given that this is a long-term proposition and, you know, we're talking to 5 to 10 year timeline, how would you counsel us to measure success in this first year? What is if we were to look at move ahead to December and we were to say this was a successful mission, how would you define that?
Well, for me, success is first to have community consensus and excitement around a vision. And I really put a lot of emphasis on that aspect of the plan because it's the first attempt in this process to build consensus and kind of a platform of the direction you want to move as a community with your downtown. So that's step one. So that to me, that's one. And the other is to have really a lot of excitement around the ideas in the plan, the vision that is built upon that vision statement, the vision for implementation, and city council buy-in to the community's desires and interests for the plan. And I just want to touch on that a little bit. What I think we find working with communities is that community consensus and community engagement becomes central to the political support that's essential to move a big initiative like this forward. And that's why we put as much emphasis as we do around community engagement, because they're the constituents that are going to ask their elected officials and their appointed officials to make smart and the right investments that they all care about. So that's why it's so central in this process, especially. Rita may have more to add there too.
No, I think you covered it, because I would say the community coming together and having an idea that would be a success, is that we're all moving in the same direction and we know what that direction is.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Susan. And I think you're on mute.
Thank you. I apologize. I think of Excelsior and Mound specifically as communities that have a significant number of dollars. Forest Lake is widely known as a fiscally very conservative community. Could you talk to us a little bit about how you work in communities that are very fiscally conservative and pride themselves on being the lowest or second lowest tax rate in the state?
Well, surprisingly, Mound is a very modest community. And people think, well, it's on Lake Minnetonka, it must be a wealthy community, but actually it's not. So that's an example of a community that is very fiscally conservative, very modest. And I would say in many ways, probably politically is similar to Forest Lake. So that's one. Another would be Hastings. And Hastings over the years is a very modest and fiscally conservative community as well. And I think what I hate to keep going back to community engagement, but essentially the plans and the strategies that are incorporated into a downtown plan are of the community. And the fiscal conservativeness, the pride in a low tax rate, that's a value dearly held by your community. And that's going to come through, that's going to come out in the planning process. And it's our job to latch onto that, to respect that, number one, and to use that as a basis for how we formulate ideas and help you think about ideas for the downtown. So I guess in a nutshell, I would say downtown plans are a reflection of the community that engages in building them. And we pride ourselves on being respectful of community wishes and interests and reflecting what the community tells us in the plans that we create.
That's fantastic. Other questions for the team this evening? Team, as you've heard these questions and they've just reflected on the conversation, anything further you'd like us to know at this time?
Well, we really, again, appreciate the opportunity. There's some really interesting things happening in Forest Lake, and Rita is kind of in doing a good amount of work in your part of the Twin Cities, which is great fun. And it's a community that we would love to work with. I've got a list of a few things that I'm going to send Dan as follow-ups to this. I'll get those sent out tomorrow. And we look forward to any more questions you've got and your decision.
I just want to echo Bruce's comments, and I'm very excited. One of the excitements of working in Lindstrom is I live in Blaine and I'm familiar with your area, have family that live in Forest Lake. So it's exciting to see the opportunity to work someplace that, I've gone since I was a kid, and that's always fun for me. That's why I love doing planning, especially being from the Twin Cities, is the opportunity to work in places I'm familiar with and that are nearby, that are a quick drive, or that we've been to on a number of occasions, even with my own family. So very familiar and excited at the opportunity. And please let us know if there are additional questions, because we'd be happy to add more information or provide more. Bruce and I can always talk more. We're just trying to be respectful of your time this evening. And so whatever we can add value to, we'd love the opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, all. Good luck this evening.
You as well.
Good night.
Dan, you want to transition us?
Yep. President, members of the EDA Downtown Committee, we do have the Cunningham group in the waiting room, and I believe Karen will bring them in right now into the group, and it's Andrew, and I forget who his partner in crime is, but I'll let Andrew introduce the team here as they get in and connect to the audio here.
Hello.
Hello.
Everyone. Can you hear me?
We can. We
We
can.
hear you.
Great. Good.
Well, we'll turn it over to your group for your presentation, and the floor is yours.
We just start up?
Go ahead. Yep.
All right.
Welcome.
I think before I distract you with slides, maybe I'll say hello and introduce myself, and Mo can introduce herself while we can actually look at each other face to face. Thank you so much for having us here today. We know this is a big project, an important decision for you. Our goal here is to give you the information that you need to make the best possible decision for you guys. So we understand we have somewhere in the range of 20, 25 minutes or so, and hopefully we can do that. So I'm Andrew Dresner with Cunningham Group. Together with Mo, we'll be leading this project. I personally am excited about it because I love downtowns. Grew up right next to a downtown similar to this back in the East Coast, and I just love downtowns. That's where everyone cares about and it's where all the fun is. So it's one of the reasons why I love this, would look forward to this project. So Mo, how about you introduce yourself? And then
Yeah, thank you very much for having us. My name is Mo Convery. I'm a landscape and urban designer at Cunningham Group. A little bit of a backstory for me. Landscape and urban design is actually a bit of a second career. I came to it from public health. So I worked in public health research out in California for about a decade before switching gears a little bit. But one thing I am very passionate about is healthy communities, and I bring a very kind of holistic and systems thinking approach to design, and I think it can be particularly beneficial for small towns and downtowns to use to start to develop strategies for the health and well-being of their communities. So I'm very excited about this project as well. I lived away from Minnesota for a while and then came back, and it's just so special to work with any Minnesota community, particularly one such like Forest Lake. So.
all right.
And kudos for the well-timed transition from public health.
Oh, thank you. Yes, yes, very
Good point.
Very lucky there.
Good point.
Yeah.
Let's see. You all see my screen?
Yes.
You can see it. Okay, great. All right. So we introduced ourselves, Mo and I introduced ourselves. And what you'll find from us is that we are both right-brained and left-brained people. We both come from a liberal arts background. We both are generalists. So kind of like small towns where you don't have, where everyone has to do a lot of little stuff. Mo and I are that way. So she comes at urban design through landscape architecture. I come at and public health. I come at urban design through architecture and city planning. And you'll see throughout a process that we will flex our left brain and our right brain accordingly. And that's one of the fun things about urban design. It allows us to do that. I also want to note that Mo and I will be doing the work. We don't oversee the work. We don't supervise the work. We do the work. So what you see is what you get. We are a large, generally speaking, a large firm in the architecture terms, but this is a very small team. It's really Mo and I. We will draw on, at times, resources within the company. And we have experts and specialists in sort of all the food groups or all the different land uses or building types, whatever you want to call it, that might bear on a downtown, such as Forest Lake, whether they're parks, restaurant, hospitality, housing, or perhaps even office and commercial. So we'll be able to draw on that as needed. So downtown plans are not necessarily new to us. I have worked on, at least in the last 10 years, 12 adopted master plans. And they're master plans that have results. This isn't a perfectly accurate count, but I can pretty much guarantee that of the plans that I've been working on, minimum 2,000 housing units have been built, lots of retail, but more importantly, the public pieces, the parks, the trails, the marinas, the libraries, the civic centers, those sort of things that bond the community together. I'm very proud of them, and it speaks to, I think, the plans that we do, which are both achievable and aspirational. And you'll hear that theme going forward. The final thing I want to say about the team in front of you is that this is a small area plan. It's not a comprehensive plan. So as opposed to being, a mile or 50,000 feet in the air, we're a little bit lower. So we're closer towards the implementation end. And that's where I really think that coming out of an architecture firm will be beneficial to you, because that we work on that closer towards the implementation end of this spectrum. And then finally, Mo and I, we love this stuff. We know our stuff, and I think we're easy to work with. And hopefully that'll come out in this brief presentation for you.
So to kick us off, now that you know a little bit something about us, we were hoping to do very quick introductions so we could get to know you. Knowing that we're very short of time, we were hoping that you could provide your name and then just one or two words about what your aspirations are for the downtown or this project. I know Dan, can I put Dan, you on the spot to kick us off?
So you're just looking for a couple of words for the aspiration for downtown?
Yes, yeah.
I would say cohesive planning for downtown is one thing aspirational.
All right, and I'll just go through my Zoom list. Leif Erickson, would you like to go?
Yeah, I'm a member of the EDA, and my aspiration would see just increased foot traffic. More of a hub where people enjoy being.
Great. And Mara.
So Mara Bain, president of the EDA and mayor of Forest Lake. Aspirations for downtown would be cohesive, or the various competing uses working well together. We've got recreation with the lake. We've got recreation with a significant city park, housing, retail, restaurants, all competing in the same space with a fair amount of traffic. Or you can see our major crossroads of our community are also right there. And we need to have thoughtful planning of how all of those uses are going to not just coexist, but work well together.
Thank you. Patrick?
Patrick Casey is city administrator. My goal would be to have a solid plan that has deliverables that we can actually implement and a roadmap to success.
Great. Jenny?
I'd like to see space for a thriving art scene, for studio space, gallery space, all different types of arts, concerts.
Jesse Johnson?
Hi, I'm a business owner just south of the highlighted area here. I guess my 3 words would be robust, fun, and safe.
Jerry?
Yeah, I'm president of the Forest Lake Association and also a member of the Downtown Committee. And for me, one of my major goals is that the lake, which is the namesake of the city, is well considered in this master plan, and that the park and the lake are an integral part and a cohesive part of the total plan.
It is one beautiful lake, that's for sure. All right, Sam?
Yes, Sam Husnick. I serve on the city council for City of Forest Lake, and better access to the lake, more open space around the lake, more parking, that sort of thing.
All right, Judy?
Judy Huntage. I serve on the EDA. I would love to have downtown become a destination, not only for Forest Lake people, but for people south and north and east and west of us. Unique shopping and eating and beautification.
Young Sue?
Susan Young, I'm on the Planning Commission, and I'm involved in a number of organizations in Forest Lake. I'd like to see some really vibrant redevelopment, taking advantage of opportunities for metro area staycations. I think that we have some opportunities regionally, state, large county parks, city parks, lakes that have great opportunities for business development through staycations.
Yeah, we found out that one of our colleagues has a family cabin up in this area, and he was very excited to share some of his highlights of the area with us. All right, Jackie Winicki.
Hi, you said it right too. I'm Jackie Winicki. I'm the communications coordinator for Forest Lake. This is my second week, my 5th day. So right now, obviously, I agree with everything everybody has said. I think they all have really great aspirations. I want to make sure the community is involved and informed. That is my priority.
Great, thank you. Robert Anderson.
Hi, I'm looking for, we own 2 buildings downtown, 1 restaurant, a vacant building, and we're looking for a business environment that business can thrive in.
Thank you. Julie Estrom.
Yeah, I'm Julia Estrom from Colin's office on behalf of Colin's office. A lot of things about the other people have said, bringing creating a welcoming space, bringing people in a cohesive manner.
And Timothy?
There we go. Sorry about that. Tim Klinkhammer, my wife Linda and I live downtown. We actually overlook the park that you show on your video. And for us, along with the other things that have been mentioned, it's energy and vibrance for the downtown community.
Matt Anderson.
Hi, this is Bob Anderson again. Matt's busy, but he's basically owns the same restaurant in the vacant building. He's looking for the same type of environment as I am.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. And Ryan Goodman, did we get you?
Oh, Ryan Goodman, city engineer, looking for a plan that has achievable milestones that include short-term and long-term goals. So, you know, in the point of time when I'm retired, that I could drive through downtown and see the walking people using all the facilities that have been laid out, like you see in Stillwater, White Bear Lake, or Excelsior, and communities like that. Just want to see that energy downtown. You know, we got it in a small area at times, and it's very energetic. Want to see how we can expand that and then connect it to other uses within the city.
Great. Those are some great examples. Some of my favorite cities in the metro. And I apologize. It just says iPad. If you haven't gotten a chance to speak, if you would like to, please feel free.
Well, Mark Finneman, am I
Mark, nice to
on
meet you.
audio? I might be the iPad guy.
Yeah.
At any rate, I'd like to see us create a personality identity for downtown, but very specifically, hopefully establish very site-specific platforms to which a developer can understand and respond to. And I think that's probably one of the fill all the holes of downtown propositions that I'm hoping the planners can bring forward.
And just one last question to see if I missed anyone who would like to speak. All right. Well, thank you. It's very nice to meet you and to hear. Thank you for sharing all of your thoughts for this project. Hand it back over to you, Andrew.
All right. Thank you. All right. I think, to be fair, we want to spend a moment and share with you our point of view on what makes a successful downtown and what makes a successful downtown plan, because both of those are important here. So it's my experience that if we can pursue these 5 words, we'll be in good shape. Prosperous, authentic, social, walkable, and healthy. If we can pursue those words and we can define how downtown can achieve your downtown can achieve those 5 things, we'll be in good shape, because I have found that those are sort of the fundamental tenets to a successful downtown. Now, it's important that they be defined as you define them, as Forest Lake defines them. So prosperous for Forest Lake does not mean necessarily as prosperous for Excelsior, but I can guarantee that those examples, Excelsior, White Bear Lake, Stillwater, that were mentioned, all have these qualities. At the same time, downtown plans have to be successful, not just the downtown. So it's my experience that downtown plans are most successful when they promote organic change as opposed to large transformative change. So organic changes are changes that are based on the inherent qualities of that place. Downtown plans are most successful when they invite a big tent of participants and they engage them in a real way so that those participants can be implementers in the years that come after the plan is completed. It's also my experience that downtown plans are most successful when they're simple and shareable. So as a document or as a thing at the end, a deliverable at the end, it's not just for the city administrator and for the city planner. It needs to be something that is simple and shareable and understandable by everyone around the table today, as well as folks that engage in the process, and even folks who haven't engaged in the process. So it needs to be simple and shareable. And then finally, successful plans, my experience again, is that they are both aspirational and achievable. So they reach and they challenge, but not so much that nothing gets done. And that's that sort of the 2 sides of the plan that Mo and I feel like we really can deliver in the best possible way.
All right. So central to developing this plan that is both achievable and aspirational. We are very passionate about community engagement. This is a plan that's meant for a community, and as such, engaging a diverse range of voices throughout the process, we believe is really central to the process of developing a thoughtful plan. We are in very unique times right now, so community engagement tools of the past may not be the most appropriate in the next year, depending on how social restrictions and quarantines continue or don't. But we have a plethora of tools and experiences with community engagement that we can call upon to help guide a thoughtful community engagement process. And again, the end goal of all of this is to create a plan that is responsive and reflective of the community in which we're working. So I think one of the great challenges of doing planning work is how we create this sense of place in a very specific point of view. So as Andrew was speaking at the beginning, Forest Lake is unique. And one of the things that we want to be true to throughout the planning process is how we elevate those unique qualities and create a sense of character and space that's reflective of the community both now and in the future. So we like to use these examples for a lot of our planning work, but I think it's appropriate here for Forest Lake. What we're trying to avoid is what we call the clock tower design. That picture on the right could be anywhere, that clock tower for placemaking. It defines the center of a place, but what is that place? What is that character? We don't really know. The images on the left are of Stillwater, so thank you for that example. You see them and you know where those places are, the scale of the buildings, the connection to the river, even the architecture, the historic palette of the downtown was maintained throughout the planning process. So you know the character, you know where you are, and that's something that's very, very central to how we like to develop our plans for downtowns.
You know? Okay, so Forest Lake has its own history, and it should have its own future. What started as a cabin community has grown over 150 some odd years, and today is a full-fledged 36 square mile city, not fully built out, but it's a city now. So you've grown and you're going to continue to grow. And this project really, I think, or that we believe, is about defining the role of your downtown in that evolution. So what can the role of downtown be as your community evolves? This is exciting to us because we believe downtowns are for everyone and that they must change along with the communities that they serve. And you are going to go through a period of change over the next 10, 20, 30 years. So your comprehensive plan recognizes that, and it puts a fair amount of weight on downtown. Downtown figures prominently right there in your vision statement, which is the top 3 lines. The third line is straight out of the comp plan, downtown commercial areas surrounded by natural resource corridors and a range of housing options. So you know as a city that downtown is important. And as in a small area plan, as urban designers, we look at your 5 main goals in your comprehensive plan. And we're excited about using our creativity and our problem solving skills to think about how downtown can help accomplish those citywide goals, the protecting the natural resources, providing for parks, etc. Sort of like, again, as I said earlier, it all kind of comes together in your downtown. So when we look a little bit more closely at downtown, a few important patterns emerge, some that are strong and can be leveraged, and some that need a little bit of strengthening. So up front and center, of course, is the publicly owned parking lots that are along the riverfront, and those are outlined in red. This project will do many things, but it will definitely address the future of those properties. And it is likely that the parking situation in downtown will change. I've been through those battles in almost every project I've ever worked on, the parking battles, and I look forward to bringing forward what I've learned to help get through it so that the outcome works for everyone. And then, of course, there's the park and the lake. These amenities are absolutely beloved. Many of you mentioned them, and they must be both protected and improved into the future. So we look forward to those robust discussions about how downtown's role, what is downtown's role in the ecological health of the lake, and also how that park can evolve with the changing needs of the community and downtown. And then finally, I'd be remiss not to talk a little bit about how downtown encourages social mixing. The role of downtowns have changed over the last 100 years. It wasn't always about social mixing, it was about retail. We know it's less about retail now and more about social mixing. So how does downtown have the right types of spaces? Are they welcoming? Are they inclusive? Do they represent the full community? And again, this is an increasingly important aspect of successful downtowns that we would love to dive into with you guys. So what will you get from us? You're going to get a clear direction for downtown. It will be a compass and a map. It's not going to be a blueprint because we can't predict the future perfectly. You'll also get a document and a process that enhances investor confidence. Now, I want to make a caveat here. When I say investor, in that term investor confidence, I don't just mean developers. We want to develop a plan that attracts developers, but investors are all of you around the table. They're every resident in the community who uses downtown for any reason. I believe the mayor talked about how downtown is used, lots of different uses coming together. You come downtown for dinner, I consider you an investor in downtown. We want to increase that confidence. A downtown plan for us will also give you a new set of tools that will both guide and attract development. We can't forecast the future perfectly, so we want to give you tools and language to be able to direct investments towards the end goal of a vibrant downtown. And then finally, a tailored implementation plan. And when I say tailored implementation plan, what I mean is a plan that it'll define both short, medium, and long-term actions. It will also define small, medium, and large investments. And if you think back to that earlier statement I made about a big tent, if an implementation plan has things that can jump off the ground immediately, but also need 5 years of lead time, as well as investments that are small, as well as investments in the large, we think it can be a plan that encompasses that big tent. So a little bit finally here on how we work. We're going to be guiding you through a process, okay? You, the downtown committee, will be our sounding board and our steering committee, but we're going to guide you through a process that includes yourself as well as the broader community. We are very honest and we're very transparent. We will have occasionally challenging conversations. I don't think you need to do a plan if you didn't also need to have challenging conversations. We're comfortable with that. We want to do that. We work, as I mentioned earlier, both right brain and left brain. Sometimes we're going to have to flex our logical side for the Public Works Director, I think, who's on the call, as well as our right hand, our intuitive side for those who think more that way. And that's okay, because again, at the end of the day, we want that plan to be both achievable and aspirational. We look forward to bringing best practices and industry expertise, both within our company as well as around the country, to Forest Lake, but tailored to your issues at Forest Lake. And then finally, in terms of how we work, we listen. This is a plan that must represent the community. And that's why we started off with the initial conversation with you and asked you to talk to us before we talk to you. So we listen. We think that's really, really, really important. So I guess in conclusion, what I'd like to say is these are the three points. We promise to you to be not just fun to work with and enjoyable to partners in your project, but also to develop a plan that is reflective of what your community wants and what your community needs. To develop a strong and localized sense of place. That word localized is really important. If you're not Forest Lake, you are no one. You need to be the best version of yourself. And then finally, an achievable and aspirational roadmap for the future, one that has the right tools, the right language, the right way to communicate, so that lots of people can feel like they're implementers of this plan. So that's what we promised to you. If you choose us to help you through this process, we would love it. We would love to do the work. As I said before to Mo, this is the, as I said earlier and discussed with Mo earlier with Mo, this is exactly the kind of projects we like to do, because these are the parts of town that people really, really, really care about. We want to be in there with you. So with that, I think we'd like to just open it up to any questions that you may have. Was anything not clear? Would you like to challenge us with anything? We're an open book. So.
Andrew, could we maybe have you stop sharing your slide just so we're able to see all faces? It's a little easier to pick up questions.
Absolutely.
And then members of the EDA in our downtown group, jump in here. What questions do we have for the Cunningham group? Jerry, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. One question I have is, in your proposal, you have, which I appreciate, the deliverables for each of your different phases of work. But I have not, maybe I've missed it, but I've looked a couple times. We have phase 1 deliverables on page 10, and then you jump to phase 3 deliverables on page 12. And I can't seem to find your phase 2 deliverables anywhere.
Didn't see our phase 2 deliverables. Well, and that's the site, so I apologize. So phase 2, I don't have the proposal right in front of me because I can't print out because I don't have a printer because we're all working from home. Phase 2 is actually
Could you just maybe just send it to us what your phase 2 deliverables are?
Yeah, absolutely. The goal here. Yeah, absolutely. I will do that. At the end of the phase, we have deliverables, with the exception of the one that is the market consultant phase. That deliverable, of course, would come from the market consultant.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, phase 1 is here, phase 3, phase 4. I think phase 2 just got somehow missed, whatever. But if you send that to us, I appreciate it. Absolutely. And then the last question I have for you is, you listed a number of reference projects that you have worked on. And one of my questions for you is that, your reference list is 90% of these projects are, 40 acres and larger. There's a few smaller ones. And as you call your proposal to us a small area plan. So which of your reference projects would you say is applicable to our project here?
Sure. I would refer you to the Monticello downtown plan, as well as I think I included work from Louisville, Colorado, which is somewhat of a similar community. It's not along the lake, but it's a similar downtown type project. And those were both downtown projects. Worthington is similar, although that's, it's more of a rural community. I think if you
have anything to do, any involvement with rivers, lakes as part of the downtown development?
Pardon me?
Have any of your reference projects have a lake or a river as part of the downtown redevelopment?
Well, Monticello is on the river.
Okay.
I've also done a lot of work in Dubuque, which is of course on the river. It's a bigger community, but it's on the river. But okay. The waterfront issues are certainly important. I know the health of the lake is, without the health of the lake, you're nothing. I realize that. I shouldn't say that, but that's like, a super important thing. So,
right. Okay.
Mo, is there anything that you would like to add?
Yeah. I just wanted to confirm with the proposal, the phase 2 is concept development and public feedback. So we'll make sure to get that to you as well. Actually, this was experience prior to Cunningham, but I worked on the Faribault master plan and downtown plan as well, which the lake and concerns about the health and well-being of the general watershed was a big piece of that project. I think one thing that Cunningham really has a great benefit with is having such expertise on our team. Anna Nelson in particular has done a lot with park planning, and I know quite a few of her parks were adjacent to rivers and lakes or incorporated a piece of that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Susan, go ahead.
I think that what you have labeled as your phase 3 deliverables are really your phase 2 deliverables, because it talks about the land use alternatives and land use scenarios and the meeting materials. Your phase 3 is really the market evaluation, which is something that we do separately. Mo, when you talk about healthy communities, do you mean healthy communities as in some of the blue water communities, healthy communities, or do you mean healthy communities as in robust and economically healthy?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. And it is a huge bucket to unpack, certainly. One of the big parts of our process is having a conversation with you all with how you define health. So from a public health perspective, we often think of it in walkability, access to open space, development of tree canopies for cooling and air quality improvement. But there's also a big component of it of how the social health and emotional health of our communities is so tied to the places that we live. So how do we create these spaces where people can come together and gather and get to know each other? I think, if anything, this past year has really shown us how valuable just physically being with one another can be, and how important our outdoor spaces are for that. Obviously, the economics of cities have a great impact on the health and well-being of everyone. So that's a big component of it as well. But as we go through the process, I think that's one of the things that I always love to hear is what health and well-being looks like for individual communities, because, you know, for every community that could be slightly different. Yeah.
Other questions? Mark, go ahead.
Well, I know the fees are time relative, you know, so it's how much time you spend establishes the fee. I got just a couple of questions, just so I can be sure that you sort of understand the time you're going to spend. Instead of just X number of community involvement sessions with groups, there could well be a fairly intense telephone survey of 15, 20, 25 different business and landowner, building and landowners that really have strong impressions about what they would like to see, but we'd rather do it on a personal level. And I'm hopeful that you can expand your services to fit that. The other question is relative to your reimbursables. Quite often, a group would be compelled to at least estimate their reimbursables so that we can make a comparison to whoever else might be proposing here in case they had their reimbursables incorporated. Are you able to estimate that and give us that kind of a cost estimation?
So I'll answer both of those questions. So the first one was, I believe we included upwards of 4 focus group meetings, which are, you know, those, first of all, we'd be happy to refine the engagement the best possible way. If instead of 4 focus group meetings, it's better to do 12 phone calls, happy to do that. I mean, I understand different groups, different people are comfortable in different settings. So that's the important thing, is to create settings where people are comfortable and where they'll share and where we can build trust. So absolutely. In terms of reimbursables, certainly give you a budget. It's my experience is nominal. There's no hotel, you know, there's no travel. I mean, there'll be a little bit of travel, but almost nothing. In the old days, we used to include reimbursables for printing, but that was also sort of that was sort of pre-digital and pre-COVID. So we can give you an estimate if you'd like, but it's really nominal. It's an absolutely minor part of the budget.
Well, I'd like to think it's nominal and not going to show up as an add-on here at any place.
Yeah, fair enough.
But the big important question is, I just think the interaction, we're a tough community to interact with, and given the times, it's even more difficult. And so I do think that there has to be this really personal interaction with you and a whole host of people, by phone or otherwise, that will tell you what a specific owner of an adjacent property sees as the future of that whole territory. Because these are very kind of secular ideas that each of them will have, and they might differ dramatically. So my hope is that you can gain that insight.
Yeah, I totally agree. My experience is what do they say? Change moves at the pace of trust. And if it's personal phone calls that create trust, that's what we need to do. If it's face-to-face across an 8-foot wide coffee table, that's what we need to do. And what we can do today, we also have to realize what we can do today is probably different than what we can do in the summer, just because of COVID. So that's why there's an element of, I think we need to, I would encourage some amount of flexibility in how we define that, because we just don't know how things will change.
Well, if I haven't frightened your fee with any of those questions, then maybe the fee stands pretty pat with just reimbursables being, so you declared reimbursables separate. So I'd still like to see an estimate of that.
Fair enough.
Other questions that members of the downtown committee or EDA may have? Susan, go ahead.
We're not a community that seems to do well with focus groups. And I mentioned earlier this evening some of our challenges as we were working on our 2040 comp plan. We just don't get folks that will come to a open house or a focus group or something like that. Sorry about that. The cat visited. So quite frankly, I'm not sure that a focus group format will really work for us. What are some of the other things that you all have done either during COVID times or pre-COVID times?
Sure. So one of the good things, one thing we can do is just, what we call pop-up meetings. So where are people congregating now? Or I shouldn't even be congregating, because where are they going now? Whether it's the grocery store, whether it's the park on an afternoon, and we can sort of intercept them there and engage them there. We can also do a lot online. I will say the problem with online is you don't build trust through, you just don't build trust through online. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it online. You should just realize its limitations. There's a lot out there that actually says if you do online engagement, your volume is actually quite a bit higher than open houses, which is good, but it also has its limitations. So those are just a couple of techniques. One of the interesting things I've always wanted to do in terms of engaging people to understand their the physical sort of background of their city was to just, I don't know if we can do it for this project, but is to distribute a puzzle of the base map of the project area. Because there is no better way to learn a place than by doing, if you can imagine, doing a puzzle. Now, puzzles are great in the winter, they're less good in the summer. They're great for families, they're less, good for other groups. So, but we've all been stressed to be as creative as possible in these times to come up with different formats to meet people, to share information, to get feedback, and the like. So, Lois, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, of course. There are a couple of online tools that we have been using for some of our other projects. One's called a Miro board. It's basically an open drawing board that you can add games to, you could add interactive activities. You think a lot of those SWOT analysis that you might do as a team at a public meeting, you can actually do that digitally, and our team members facilitate that and get the conversation going. It's visual, it's not as good as being in person, but to me it's a little bit better than presenting and then having people ask questions. The other thing I'm a big fan of, I've done a lot of park work, and I know people are very passionate about their parks. It's one of the reasons I love to work on park projects. And a lot of times the folks living around the parks are the ones who just have such an intimate knowledge that you just want to get every little last bit of information out from them. So we do what we call direct connect, and it's a little bit what we were talking before about one-on-one conversations. You do direct outreach to specific people. So maybe a downtown master plan, it's actually sending personalized emails to business owners or educators in the area, very specific people that you want to target, and then engage them in the project through making sure they're always invited to things, that they have your phone number. It's just that personal touch. that I found very helpful to get, especially build the trust, which why is a little bit more challenging